Metal Jesus here, and I'm back again with a video that's going to be all about Piko Interactive. Now, they are a game publisher that is putting out brand new, high quality retro games for like the Super Nintendo, the Sega Mega Drive, Genesis, the original NES, the Game Boy Advance. As a matter of fact, they sent me an entire box of most of the games that they sell, so we're going to check these out. Now, what's cool about them is that they basically license home-brews and original games. They also license games that were unfinished that never came to market, or maybe they were games that just never made it to the North American market, and they're re-releasing them in really high-quality versions. So, for instance, they create the labels, the cartridges, they also create the manuals, the boxes. It's pretty impressive stuff. Let's take a look. Well, let's get this party started. I'm going to talk about a game called Water Margin, A Tale of Clouds and Wind. It's kind of a weird name. Now, it came out originally only in China. And then what Piko Interactive did was acquire the license and then help with the translation over into English and North American audiences. As you can see, this is a pretty cool beat 'em up. You get to choose between 3 different characters to play as. And you just go out and you just kick some butt. There's a couple things I like about this game, including the great graphics. This looks pretty decent, right? Also, this game supports 2-player co-op. Always a good time, beating up people with your friend. And then it also has alternate endings, depending on which character you choose. And then, of course, I have to talk about the packaging, right? Most of you are collectors like me. So this comes in a standard Genesis clamshell, nice, good and quality there. Also a full color manual and a cartridge. I mean, with a great label, what more do you need? Next up is Mr. Bloppy Saves the World. That's such a weird title too. A video full of weird titled games. That's what I'm all about. Now, when I first put this game in, I didn't quite know what to think about it because it was kind of simple, but it was sort of addictive. And that's because it is an educational title that was originally canceled. So this never came out, and then Piko Interactive acquired the license, made a manual, box, all that sort of stuff, and put it out. And I have to say, despite being an educational title, this is actually a pretty cool game. Also, don't let these first couple levels fool you. This game can get pretty tough after a while. Now, it's not gonna be challenging like, some traditional, platforming game, but it is kind of fun. And if you got a young kid, you could do a whole lot worse. Now, here's something you don't see every day. This is a brand new game for the Game Boy Advance. It's called Anguna, Warriors of Virtue. Now, I have to say, I was pretty impressed with this game and the quality of it. To start off with, if you like action-adventure RPGs similar to like, say, Zelda or Secret of Mana, you're gonna feel right at home with this game. And this is a pretty big game too. There are 6 dungeons to explore as well as a large overworld map. And then this cartridge actually has an exclusive dungeon just for this release. Now, I could be wrong that this might have been released as a ROM previously. The cool thing about this though is that they went back and fixed and polished a bunch of the bugs. So again, this is almost like the definitive version of this game to get. So definitely check it out. World Reborn is probably one of the best games in this entire lot. Well, that's probably because I love shooters, and this is a horizontal shooter that never came out previously. So back in the early 2000s, this was made but not released, and such a shame, but again, I'm really glad that Piko Interactive picked it up. What makes this game really cool is that it's a horizontal shooter, but there are a bunch of RPG elements added on top. And like any good RPG, it's all about experience. So in this game, you collect experience points and then you use those to power up your combat abilities, essentially. There are 6 different pickups that enhance your weapons and give you things like secondary fire, or maybe it makes you a little bit faster, a bunch of things like that. And then again, it's an RPG, so you have to be able to save. So this uses a password save system that works pretty well. And again, as a collector, I'm always happy to see a quality box, manual, and cart with a kick-ass label, so good job. So now we get to a game a lot of people are curious about, and that is Duke Nukem 3D on the Genesis. What? That's because it didn't come out here in North America. Actually, this is a Brazilian release that Piko Interactive was able to license and bring it up here. Now, I gotta be honest with you, I love me some old school Duke Nukem 3D on the PC, but this is not that. And quite frankly, it's just simply because the Genesis isn't that powerful. I mean, it's not able to really do a game like this really well, or at least a game like Duke Nukem really well. So it's definitely got some limitations. A couple things about this is that this only contains the second of the original episodes. This is an episode called Lunar Apocalypse. And even the levels themselves had to be redesigned to kind of fit into the Genesis. So should you buy it? You know, honestly, I don't know if I'd actually ever play it. But if you are going for a complete Duke Nukem 3D collection, you might have to have this. Here's a game called Cornbuster for the Super Nintendo. Now, this is an unreleased Super Nintendo game that Piko Interactive was able to license. What's interesting about this game is that it was originally 70% finished, so it wasn't actually done. And then they acquired the permissions to publish it, and then they basically went to work to complete it. So they fixed levels, they also fixed boss fights, they put a bunch of polish on the game, they fixed bugs, and they basically brought it up to 100% complete and playable. So that's what you're seeing here. Now, the gameplay in this might look a little familiar, and that's because it's similar to a game on the Sega Genesis called Devilish. Now, what I like about this is that, again, Piko Interactive is not just taking a bunch of public ROMs out there and putting them on a cartridge and selling it. No, they're actually developing and finishing these games, polishing them up, creating nice boxes and manuals and cartridges. So I'm impressed. Here's a game that some of you may have heard of before. That's because it's kind of notorious a little bit. It is an unlicensed Christian themed video game called Super 3D Noah's Ark for the Super Nintendo. Now, this was an unlicensed game, like I mentioned, and Piko Interactive, they've acquired that license. And so now they are the publisher of this game. So, what is this game all about? Well, what's weird about this game is that it's very much like Wolfenstein 3D, but it's just non-violent, supposedly. I mean, there's no blood and guts and like that. But basically, you're Noah, and your job is to, as far as I can tell, like shoot food at the different animals, which I guess knocks them to sleep. I don't know. I mean, who thought of this game? But I gotta be honest with you. I played this game way too much when I was capturing the footage. It was actually pretty fun. Now, I'm not saying it's better than like Wolfenstein or anything like that, but I enjoyed it quite a bit more than Duke Nukem 3D on the Genesis. I just have to say, I got to be honest here. Here is another unfinished game that Pico was able to acquire. Now, the interesting thing about this game is that it was never actually released. Originally, the programmer and artist who created this, they got to about 50% of the game being done, essentially. And so Piko Interactive came in, they found that original developer, and then they finished it. So over 100 bugs were fixed in this game. They added a whole new world and levels, menus, cutscenes, there's a new ending. They also added a password system and just so much more. This is actually a pretty impressive game. I will tell you that it's hard as hell. that could just be because I suck, I don't know. But I was dying quite a bit, but some people are really into that, so definitely check it out. Here's another Super Nintendo game that's kind of interesting. It's called Apocalypse 2. Now, I believe this only came out in Europe, and it's an arcade shooter that Pico is bringing to other territories like North America. It has pretty sharp graphics, and it uses mode 7 for scaling and probably some of the physics, at least some of the feel of this game. You know, I'm a huge shooter fan. I wanted to like this game. I just found it to be very frustrating. So I don't know. It just could be me. I have no idea. But, you know, definitely check it out if you're looking for something kind of new and interesting. Here's something pretty cool. It's a brand new homebrew for the original NES called Quest Forge by Order of Kings. This game looks and plays just like classic NES games. Now you are a knight and your king needs your help. So you go around exploring the world and you go from the bottom of the sea to the top of the mountains. You defeat enemies, all of that good stuff that people love. And like their other releases, this comes with a nice cardboard box, full color manual, and also a really nice label on the cartridge. And then finally we have a game called Broken Circle. Now this is an unreleased game for the Game Boy Advance. Now what's kind of interesting about this game is that it was originally so large that no publisher would touch it because it'd be too expensive to make. Well, thankfully Piko Interactive picked it up because it's actually a pretty cool turn-based RPG that is based on Norse mythology. It's funny because the Game Boy Advance has a lot of these really cool turn-based RPGs, and I like them quite a bit simply because I get time to think about stuff. And again, this is a good one. One of the things that really stood out for me was just the animation. I mean, it's a really nice looking game. All right, so that's a quick look at some of the games that they sell. Now, a couple things at the end here I just want to mention. This is not a sponsored video. They sent me these games to check out, but there was no expectation for it, and I'm not getting any sort of kickback on it at all. I just wanted to really do a video just to kind of show these things that I thought were pretty cool. Now, a couple things here I've heard is that people are kind of like surprised that maybe they cost so much. I would say though that that's not super surprising because if you actually try to go out and legitimately get a license for something, that's usually expensive. The license holder will want money for you know, their intellectual properties, and so you have to pay for that. And that's just the price of trying to do things legitimately. Also, I would say is that they do really high quality stuff. I hope that came through in the video. I mean, their manuals are color, their boxes are great, and I don't know, personally myself, I think they're reasonably priced. You know, people will spend $60 on a brand new Call of Duty game that 3 months later is half the price. These things will probably hold their value, I would assume. So the other thing though that I ran into, and I just want to mention because there's a lot of game collectors out there, and that is that some of these games I could not get to work on the Retron 5. Now it could be that maybe my Retron 5 is just not fully updated. I think it is, but just be aware that all of the footage that you saw in this video was taken from the actual consoles because they just did not work on the Retron 5. Actually, the only ones that worked on the Retron 5 for me were the Game Boy Advance games, and so that's the footage that you saw there. But I just want to throw that out there because I know a lot of you have that console. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was fun to make. Thanks for watching my channel. Thanks for subscribing, and take care. You know, you always hear about these unfinished games that come out on like the Nintendo systems or the Genesis, but you know what? Where are the ones for the PlayStation 1? That'd be so cool, right? Love to see that, or like the Saturn, or hell, even the TurboGrafx. Wouldn't it be cool if somebody was actually making new TurboGrafx games? Is that a thing? I'd love to know, because, well, of course my wallet would probably start hurting, but I'd love to know. Is that a thing?